The concept of a virtual drive is that you will take any folder on your computer and turn it into a lettered hard drive, which will be recognized by Windows. For our example, we are going to take within the T drive, we're going to take this folder, Use, and turn it into the drive letter Q. I'm going to run my virtual drive program. This shows all the available drive letters. I'm going to select Q, which is a common drive letter for virtual drives. When we get into using this with Avid Media Composer, I'm going to recommend using other letters, but for this example, we're going to stay with Q. And now I'm going to browse to that folder on the T drive. And select Use. This is the same folder structure as here. Click OK. So now what the program is going to do is going to create a new drive, Q, which will show up over here. And that drive letter is going to point only to this folder here. So I click Create, and as you'll see here, Q is going to show up. And there we go. So now we look at the contents of our folder. We have one single bitmap image in there, and now I go to the virtual drive Q, and again, this is the exact same image right there. So let's go up one level within the T drive, and I'm going to take this DVD template and drag it to our Use folder, which is down here. So now we have that single bitmap and the Photoshop template. Now when I go to the virtual drive Q, again, the exact same contents. Now these being separate drive letters, if I try and move this from Q up to the graphics folder, it's going to actually move it, or copy it rather than move it. So now in graphics I have the DVD template back, but it is still in this directory here because when you move items from between drive letters, it actually will just copy them as opposed to actually move them. So right now, again, Q and Use, the exact same contents. So now within T, I'm just going to drag it up one folder level, overwrite it, and now in our folder we only have the single image, and I go back to the virtual drive and we only have the single image there. Okay, so you can have as many virtual drives as you have available letters. Let's remove the one that we dismounted, and you see it disappears from my computer. And let's go ahead and remount it. We're going to use the same letter Q. I'm going to rebrowse because I'm actually going to go up a couple of levels when selecting the folder this time. So let's select for web. Click Create. Q is going to show up again. But you can see now it has the folder structure below the for web folder. So within for web we've got these files here, and again I click on Q, exact same files, plus within I have the exact same files within the folders. So now the virtual drive Q is the exact same contents as this folder here. And so you can create a virtual drive in any letter that you have available, and you can browse to any folder, and you can change those folders later. One final aspect of this program is that if you click on Restore Virtual Drives with System Restart, when you shut your computer down or restart it, these drives that you have listed here are all going to be automatically remounted. If this is not clicked, you will lose these virtual drives when you restart the system, and you'll have to redo them manually. So a lot of times with virtual drive you may be doing something just to back it up, and then you want to dismount that drive immediately, or in Avid, if you're doing a long-term project that you want to use a virtual drive, you're going to want it to mount every time that the project starts. So again, what a virtual drive does is it allows you to take any folder on your computer and mount it as a lettered hard drive. This is the project that we're going to archive using virtual drives. This is a very short project within Media Composer, 4 clips, stock footage, original audio, ambient audio, some background music, dissolves between them here, some render dissolves in effect. Some of this footage was brought in specifically for this project. Some of the footage is an open bin from a different project. However, all the media for this project is on the Avid RAID. So what we're going to do is to create, I've actually got a second bin here, but actually let me duplicate this timeline first, and I'm going to drag this down into my consolidated bin and open my consolidated bin here, bring that into the record monitor. So now what I have is actually an exact duplicate of what I've done so far. But it is in a new bin, a separate bin for the consolidated footage, and I've duplicated the timeline. So everything that I did prior is still intact, but I have this new bin here, because when you consolidate, you're going to create new media, and you don't want to mix that up with the old media. And what we're going to do here is when we consolidate, we're going to consolidate to the virtual drive, not to the RAID. So let's take a look at that real quick. Here's Windows Explorer, and here's the Virtual Drive Manager program. What we're going to do is consolidate to this folder right here. Let me get rid of that. And so within the local store T drive, which is in a 1 terabyte internal, I have this folder here. The pound sign in front of it, that's something that I use that tells me that this is a virtual drive folder, and then the letter that I use for this project goes next. So this is pound signed Q, and then the name of the project, stock footage. And so that way, somewhere down the line, I know exactly what letter I used to mount this project. So right now, the footage for the video that we're looking at is on the F drive, one of the 2 Avid RAIDs that I have here. And what I'm going to do is to consolidate that to the local store T, drive T, and this folder right here. As you see, there is absolutely nothing in that folder now. Nothing in the Q, which is the virtual drive of this folder. Remember, these are exactly the same. This is the folder, and this is the virtual drive Q, which is that folder right there. So let's go back, and now we need to just double check. I believe it's probably still already set, but you need to go to Media Creation, and you see we are backing up to K right now. So what we want to do is, for Media Creation, on any of these here, you just want to select the virtual drive. In this case is Q. Select Apply to All. So now capture anything we do now. Rendering is all going to go to Q, and again, remember, Q is that folder on the T drive, our virtual drive. Q is the virtual drive. So now anything we do within this project goes to that virtual drive. So again, this is my new bin for consolidating footage, and yeah, you see nothing in there right now, because what we're doing here is we're tricking Avid into creating media to a folder as opposed to the root of a hard drive. Avid only will, by default, write its media to the root of a drive. So the T drive, the root is right here. This is Avid Media Files. This is where all the Avid media for this drive goes. And for F, Avid Media Files, this is where media for off of the F RAID goes, so we don't actually need to see all that. So again, we're going from the RAID to the internal drive, but more specifically to the drive letter Q, which is this folder here. But you will notice that as soon as we start this, Avid is going to create the Avid media files within Q, thinking that it is a hard drive into the root of Q, but that's actually going into this folder here. So that's what we're doing, is we're tricking Avid into putting its media files in a folder rather than the root of a hard drive. And this is all completely legal too. As far as within Windows and with Avid, I have not seen anything that says that what we're doing is not recommended. So consolidate, audio video on the same drive, yes. Local store Q, Again, in that case, our drive letter Q is what the virtual drive we want to go to. Handle length, select whatever you want. Create new sequence, that's up to you, again with all these other settings. So let's just go ahead and click this, and we will consolidate our project here. And one thing is, even though these two audio files, two audio tracks are turned off, it's still going to consolidate them. So you're not losing anything. You don't have to worry about making, like when exporting, if you accidentally did not have something ticked on, then it's still going to, because when you export, if something's turned off, you don't get that audio track or something. We've all done it. But with consolidate, it's going to duplicate everything. So this is now created a new timeline, and I'm just going to make it a little bit shorter. That way I know this is my consolidated track. Okay, so now that I bring the consolidated in, what we are looking at here is not playing off the Avid RAID. It is playing off of the internal 1 terabyte drive. This is just a standard SATA drive as opposed to the high bandwidth Avid RAID. So let's take a look at our Q drive, and you will see, look at, there's our Avid Media Files folder. Go into that, and here is all the brand new media that was created. It has not deleted what was on the Avid RAID because we told it not to do that. So what we have now, though, is the consolidated timeline is now working off of the new media we created in the virtual drive. So I go back to the original copy here. This is playing off the Avid RAID. This is the consolidated timeline. This is playing off of the virtual drive. Okay, so let's do something. So now we've actually backed up this copy or this project, although only the stuff within the timeline. If there's some things that you think you want to keep for this project, you might want to create a separate timeline and throw those in just kind of randomly and consolidate that. This will not back up everything within the project. This will only back up everything that's within your timeline. But so what we've got is this right now is a duplicate of all the media for the timeline. You still have what we had originally in the RAID, but here's what we can do is we can take this and that folder right there, and I'm going to drag this now. Let's put it in there to an external 1 terabyte drive. This is again same size as T, which is internal. This is again terabyte external. I have now copied that footage from T, which is also Q, to K right here. So now I have that raw footage in 2 locations. Avid is looking for that footage at drive letter Q. Right now, drive letter Q is pointing to the files here on the T drive. So let's change that. This is the Q. This is what Avid is looking for. This is the path. Looking down there. I remove this. And now when I click on the timeline here, everything's going to disappear. Media offline. We have all seen this before. Okay, let's go back to our virtual drive manager. I'm going to collect Q, or select Q, and now I'm going to browse not to T but to K. Back up, Q, stock footage, click OK, tell it to create, and it's probably created it by now. When I click on the timeline, everything should be back. Bingo. Magic. Now this project, the consolidated timeline, is not looking at the footage from here. Q, which is right here, is now pointing to this folder on the K drive. So that is the power of the virtual drive, is that now you can delete everything off your RAID. You can back up the consolidated footage wherever you want. And then say, say the local, after a year or so, you start deleting some projects because you just don't need it or whatever. You still have this on the K drive. 2 years from now, somebody says, I just want to change one little 2-second shot in this 30-minute program. If you have all this, even on an external USB drive, you can use the virtual drive to go back to whatever that project is, make that one little change. You're not going to have the bandwidth with USB to do a complete edit possibly, but you can just go out and make a tiny little change and then export it to DVD or to DNX HD single QuickTime file or whatever you want to do. But that basically is the power of the virtual drive, because you can go back and link to these files anytime you want. So I can take everything off the RAID to this project right here. And then if I have to go back to it, instead of having to do a one-click restore, you just use the virtual drive manager to point the drive letter that it's looking for to wherever that folder is stored, whether it be an internal drive, external drive, Blu-ray DVD. It's definitely not going to edit from a Blu-ray DVD, but you can then copy those files to whatever folder, drive, whatever you want, and then use the virtual drive to point to that folder, because that's the power of the virtual drive. Avid is looking for the media on drive letter Q, and then Q can be pointing to wherever you tell it to. So that's how you back up a project using virtual drives with Avid. And there should be one more tutorial on this, which will deal with using virtual drives for the entire project. Even better than using a virtual drive to consolidate your project and archive it is using a virtual drive right from the beginning of your project. So you have to remember, before you start Avid, you need to have your virtual drive mounted already. For this tutorial, we're going to use this project. It's a made-up project, NIU History, but I am using the U drive, the letter U for this. You remember we were using Q for everything before. But I actually have 4 drives mounted right now. I have the P, Q, R, and U. 3 of these virtual drives are pointing to folders on the F drive, which is an Avid RAID, and then one of them is pointing to the T drive, which is the 1 terabyte internal. So for my project here, I'm using the U drive, and I've created everything here beforehand and mounted the drive before I started Avid. Once you have Avid started, first thing you have to do before you do anything, immediately after creating this project, this is the whole key, is that you need to make sure that everything is pointing to that drive. So go to your media creation. In this case, again, we're using the U drive, so I'm going to select that, and then, of course, apply to all, so that everything you capture, import, mix down, render, everything is going to go to that drive. For this project, I have just a few clips, and the timeline has, I've got a color effect here, a couple of dissolves, and I've got one graphic in here. So if we go to Explorer here, again, we're using the U drive, which is here, but that is actually pointing to this folder right here, the NIU history. So now if I go to my MXF, and actually the one folder, this is all the media for that project. I have the XD cam clips that I brought in, the graphic, the renders, everything in here is within this one folder right here. So this is really where using the virtual drive right from the beginning really is so beneficial, in that let's say I get halfway through a project, and it's crucial that I don't lose anything, so that if the drive goes down and let's say the backup fails or something like that, if I just want to do a quick backup of this of the media on this project, this is how easy it is. On the T drive, the 1 terabyte internal drive, I've already got a folder here that I use for creating for my After Effects projects, for graphics, for renders, and all that. All I have to do is grab this folder, is the NIU history, the U drive folder here, drag it into that right there, and this is a small project, so it's going to go quickly, and as simple as that, I now have a backup of all Avid media for this project. It is that simple. And so, okay, let's say this project is complete now, and so I want to get it off the F drive. what I do is I just, again, drag this down in here. Let's say the project is done, so I would just drag this into this folder here, or you could put this higher up, but I like doing this. This way I have everything with this project in one single folder. I've got all the After Effects and graphics and renders and the Avid Media within this folder here. And so then I can just take this one folder, drag it up to the 1 terabyte external drive, 2011 projects, drop it on there, and now it is going to copy everything from the T drive. Again, this folder has not just the Avid Media, but it also has all the other things that are related to that project. And now I have a complete backup of my history project here on the T drive. Long term, you just fill these up. 1 terabyte drives are less than $100. In a few more years, they'll probably be giving them away for free. So you might as well just use these for backups. So as the externals get filled up, just take it off, put a new one in. Make sure you exercise it every couple of months. Turn it on, let it run a little bit, and then for long-term storage on the T, as a couple of years go by and this fills up or whatever, and you decide, well, I'm not going to need this NIU history project. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. So let's do that. But then, of course, a couple of years, actually probably immediately after you delete that, the call's going to come in that, darn it, we need to re-edit that program. So let's go back here and let's actually delete this from Avid, or from the RAID. So I've deleted that from the RAID. And now, of course, it shows as not being available, even though I didn't dismount it. So I actually shouldn't have done it that way, but it actually worked out. Avid doesn't have a heart attack when you do that, which is always good. If you've ever deleted media from within the Avid folder and not through the media tool, you know that Avid can just absolutely have fits at times. So let's just go ahead and remove that virtual drive, and now I know that, okay, so everything's gone and I have to go back and re-edit that project years later. But fortunately I have that backup drive, so I'm going to go to the virtual drive manager, and let's, oops, wrong thing. I need to select my drive letter first. So U, because I know in the folder here, NIU history folder, I know that I can see immediately that this is the virtual drive there. So I want to do U, and then I'm going to point to that, which is now on the K drive. 2011 backup, NIU history. That, again, that's so nice, is that I'm not going to accidentally grab the wrong folder, because I know immediately the # and the letter, that's my virtual drive folder. Create it. Take a second for it to come up here. There it is. I click down on my timeline again, and everything shows up again. And again, first time you saw this, the media was coming off the Avid RAID. Now the media is coming off a 1 terabyte external USB drive. If you need to go back and re-edit this program, do some heavy-duty editing, it's as simple as dragging this folder back to the Avid RAID. Let's do that. Again, this is a small project, so it's going to go fairly quickly. And then as simply as that, let's go ahead and dismount the U drive, and everything disappears. Go back and remount it, but we're going to point now to the media on the Avid RAID. And NIU history right there. And create. And take a second. And when I click back on the timeline, everything should be back. So now we are back to media being on the Avid RAID. Now, one thing you notice here is I have U for 2 projects here, for faculty development and NIU history. So you can reuse the drive letters, but if you are editing both of the projects at the same time, then you're going to have to keep mounting and dismounting the drive letters. So drive letter management, you do have to spend a little bit of time on. So it's not going to really hurt anything, but it could be very inconvenient. So you want to try and space your drive letters out so that you won't be editing two projects at the same time that are looking for the same drive letter on the virtual drive manager. So as you see, I've got 4 mounted. So I've got the P drive is going to this project here. The Q drive is actually going to one on the 1 terabyte external. The R drive is pointing to the Stock Shots project, and then the U drive is pointing to this one here. So you do have to pay attention a little bit to how you're going to manage it, but by using this naming convention, it really simplifies things, and you just really have to make sure at the beginning of your project that you set everything up and go into your media creation and make sure that you point everything to that drive. And then again on this project, on this program, make sure that you have restore virtual drive when system restarts clicked, so that inevitably when you have to shut down or reboot your system, everything is going to come back to the way you want it. And that is pretty much it.